In 2005, a Florida lawyer filed a $600 million lawsuit against Rockstar Games, Sony, Walmart, and GameStop. His argument, that a video game had trained an 18-year-old to murder 3 police officers in cold blood.
Saying that Devin Moore shot 3 people in the head because of a video game?
What we're saying is that Devin Moore was, in effect, trained to do what he did. He was given a murder simulator. He bought it as a minor. He played it hundreds of hours, which is primarily a cop-killing game. It's our theory, which we think we can prove to a jury in Alabama.
He appeared on 60 Minutes. He testified before Congress. He drafted legislation in multiple states. He sent thousands of faxes to judges, politicians, journalists, and game developers, sometimes in the middle of the night. His name was Jack Thompson. And for almost a decade, he was the single most dangerous threat to the Grand Theft Auto franchise that has ever existed.
A lot of video gamers out there who just hate you. What do you have to say to those people?
I would say to them what I said to Doug Lowenstein, because I'm opposed to violence in games. I will hunt you down and find you, and I will kill you.
Here's what most people assume when they hear about someone trying to ban GTA. They picture a fringe activist, a joke, someone the gaming industry laughed at and ignored. Thompson drafted a bill in Louisiana in 2006 that passed the State House unanimously and cleared the Senate Judiciary Committee. He helped draft similar legislation in Utah. He successfully pressured major retailers to change their sales policies around mature-rated games. He got pro-hack vice status in an Alabama court to pursue a $600 million lawsuit against Rockstar's parent company. This was not a fringe activist throwing paper at a wall. For a specific window of time, roughly 2003 to 2006, Jack Thompson had genuine institutional momentum, and understanding why it collapsed tells you everything about how the gaming industry actually defeated him. And when we get to what Thompson is doing today, specifically the statement he made about video games in a recent interview that has completely floored the gaming community, that's the ending to this story that nobody saw coming. Because the man who spent 20 years calling GTA a murder simulator eventually said something that made every gamer's jaw drop. Let's go back to the beginning. John Bruce Thompson. He was born in 1951, Cleveland, Ohio. He became a Florida attorney, a devout Christian, and starting in the late 1980s, one of the most aggressive moral campaigners in American public life. Before he ever touched a video game, Thompson had already built a reputation for extreme tactics. In 1988, he ran for Dade County prosecutor against incumbent Janet Reno. During the campaign, he repeatedly and publicly accused Reno of being a lesbian. He lost. He then filed battery charges against Reno. The charges were found to have no merit. After the election loss, Thompson turned his attention to obscenity in media. He pursued legal action against rap artists. He went after Howard Stern. He filed complaints against MTV. His first lawsuit against the video game industry came in 1999, the aftermath of the Heath High School shooting in Kentucky in 1997, where a 14-year-old opened fire on students. Thompson filed a $130 million lawsuit against game developers and distributors, arguing the games had desensitized the shooter. The case was dismissed. The court ruled it was, in their words, simply too far a leap from shooting characters on a video screen to shooting people in a classroom. He lost. He moved on. And then in 2003, something happened that gave him exactly the case he had been looking for. On the 7th of June 2003, an 18-year-old named Devin Moore was brought into a police station in Fayette, Alabama on suspicion of driving a stolen car. While being processed, he grabbed an officer's gun. He shot and killed 2 police officers, Arnold Strickland and James Crump, and a dispatcher named Leslie Miller. Then he stole a patrol car and fled. When he was recaptured, Moore told investigators, "Life is a video game. Everybody's got to die sometime." Investigators found Moore had played Grand Theft Auto Vice City obsessively in the months before the murders. The game contains a mission that in broad structural terms mirrors what Moore did, escaping a police station, killing officers, fleeing in a police vehicle. For Jack Thompson, this was the case, a smoking gun, the proof he had been building his entire career toward. Thompson filed a $600 million civil lawsuit on behalf of the victims' families against Rockstar's parent company, Take-Two Interactive, Sony, Walmart, and GameStop, arguing these companies had effectively trained Moore to commit murder. He told the press Rockstar's games were murder simulators. He told GameSpot the case would destroy Rockstar Games and change the face of the entertainment industry. He appeared on 60 Minutes in March 2005 as the case gained national coverage. and for a moment the gaming industry genuinely didn't know how this was going to end. Before we get to how this unraveled, it's important to understand that Thompson wasn't just losing during this period, because the full picture of his campaign is more complicated than a simple story of a man raging at walls. In Louisiana in 2006, Thompson helped draft legislation to restrict the sale of violent video games to minors. The bill passed the State House unanimously. It cleared the Senate Judiciary Committee. The gaming industry lobbied against it. It still moved forward until federal courts ultimately struck it down as unconstitutional under the First Amendment. Thompson helped draft similar legislation in Utah. He provided testimony in congressional hearings on video game violence. He successfully pressured major retail chains to more strictly enforce age verification policies for M-rated games. A real, documented outcome. The hot coffee scandal in 2005, when a hit minigame was discovered buried in GTA San Andreas' code, handed Thompson exactly the kind of mainstream media moment he had been engineering for years. The story led every news cycle. Rockstar was forced to recall and re-release the game with a modified adults-only rating before reverting to mature. It was the closest thing to a genuine Rockstar public defeat that had ever happened. Thompson didn't cause hot coffee, but he was the loudest voice in the room when it exploded, and he used it with maximum effectiveness. My take is that 2005 was the year Jack Thompson was closest to winning. The Alabama case was alive. Hot coffee was dominating headlines. Legislators were listening. If the courts had ruled differently on even one of those fronts, the story of GTA's relationship with regulation looks very different today. Here's where the Jack Thompson story takes a turn that nobody in the gaming industry could have scripted better. Because Thompson didn't lose because Rockstar outlawyered him, he didn't lose because the courts ruled definitively that video games were protected speech, though they eventually did. He lost primarily because of Jack Thompson. Over the course of his legal career, Thompson sent thousands of mass emails and faxes to judges, court officials, journalists, and opposing counsel. Some were sent in the middle of the night. Some contained language that courts found threatening or harassing. Some made accusations, including allegations of involvement against people who opposed him. In the Alabama case, the $600 million civil lawsuit, Judge James Moore revoked Thompson's pro-hack Vice license in November 2005 and removed him from the case entirely. The judge's stated reason: Thompson's conduct was not befitting practice in the state. The Florida bar eventually filed 31 separate disciplinary charges against Thompson. A referee found him guilty on 27 of them. The charges included making false statements to tribunals, disparaging and humiliating litigants, and a pattern of frivolous filings. On the 25th of September 2008, the Florida Supreme Court permanently disbarred Jack Thompson. No opportunity for reinstatement. The court's written opinion stated, "The court agrees that respondent is not amenable to rehabilitation." He was also ordered to pay the Florida bar $43,675.35 in legal costs. Thompson's response to the disbarment was to issue a press release claiming it was political retaliation. He then filed a lawsuit naming more than 70 defendants, including the Florida bar and all 7 Florida Supreme Court justices. In 2009, he appealed his disbarment to the United States Supreme Court. They declined to hear the case. So here's what the Jack Thompson story actually tells us, and it comes in 3 layers that go well beyond one man's failed career. First, he identified something real, even if his methods and conclusions were wrong. The question of whether extremely violent interactive media affects behavior, particularly in young people, is not a settled scientific question even today. Thompson was wrong about GTA being a murder simulator. He was wrong about direct causation. But the broader conversation he forced about age verification, about what content is appropriate for minors, about publisher responsibility produced real policy outcomes that the gaming industry eventually accepted in the form of the ESRB system and retail enforcement. The man lost every case. Some of the questions he raised are still being asked. Second, the gaming industry defeated him not through the courts, but through growth. By the time Thompson was disbarred in 2008, the average age of a gamer in America was over 30. Gaming had become a mainstream cultural institution. The political cost of restricting it had become too high. Thompson's window where gaming was still culturally marginal enough to be legislated against closed, not because courts ruled in gaming's favor, but because gaming became too big to attack. Today, 65% of Americans play video games. That's the real reason GTA 6 launches in 2026, without a Jack Thompson in the room. And third, the ending to this story is generally one of the strangest in gaming history. After disbarment, Thompson taught civics classes to inmates at a Florida correctional facility, and then in a recent interview, he was asked what he thought about video games today. His answer stunned everyone who heard it. He called video games, and this is a direct quote, arguably the greatest teaching tool ever invented. He talked about how games had helped children with learning disabilities. He talked about virtual reality. The man who spent 20 years calling GTA a murder simulator completely reversed his position, publicly, without qualification. Jack Thompson never won a single major legal case against a video game. Every lawsuit was dismissed or he was removed from it. Every attempt to have a game banned or declared a public nuisance failed. GTA never went anywhere. But the ESRB, the Entertainment Software Rating Board, which was created specifically to prevent government censorship of games, was strengthened significantly during the period of Thompson's most intense activity. Retail enforcement of age ratings improved. The industry took content warnings more seriously. The uncomfortable truth is that the gaming industry's current self-regulatory framework, the one that keeps governments largely out of content decisions, was partly built in response to people like Jack Thompson. He gave the industry a reason to self-police before the government did it for them. He lost every battle, but the threat he represented shaped how the industry operates today. GTA 6 launches in November 2026 into a world where the rating system works, retail enforcement exists, and the political will to ban mainstream gaming products has largely evaporated. Jack Thompson helped build that world by losing. Jack Thompson was wrong about almost everything he argued. The science didn't support him, the courts didn't support him, his own conduct eventually destroyed his career. But he was operating in a window roughly 1999 to 2008. When gaming was still culturally vulnerable enough that a sufficiently aggressive campaign could have produced very different outcomes. That window closed. Gaming grew faster than the opposition could move. And by the time the courts and the legislature caught up with the industry was already too big, too mainstream, and too economically significant to legislate against. GTA 6 doesn't launch in November with a Jack Thompson waiting for it. It launches into the world his failure helped create. Do you think Jack Thompson was a genuine threat who got lucky, or do you think the gaming industry was always going to win this fight regardless of what he did? Because I think the answer to that question says more about how you view the relationship between culture and regulation than it does about video games.